Is the first kill the best kill? That was dumb. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. We're talking everything on Netflix all the time, so if you guys are here and you want to subscribe, more reviews to come. But right now, we're talking the brand new series that just dropped today, and that is First Kill. I had no clue what this was, but let's talk about the summary. When it's time for teenage vampire Juliette to make her first kill so she can take her place among a powerful vampire family, she sets her sights on a new girl in town named Calliope. But much to Juliette's surprise, Calliope is a vampire hunter from a family of celebrated slayers. Both find out that the other won't be so easy to kill, and unfortunately, way too easy to fall for. So not only is this a vampire monster hunting series in a way, it's also a romance. Teenage romance. We see a lot of that on Netflix. This series is rated TV mature for violence and sexual content, the occasional cursing, so a lot of things in here that may not be for the kids, but I do believe a younger, maybe later teenage demographic is kind of what they're shooting for here, because that's kind of the appeal of the story as a whole. Set in high school. Two girls that are just trying to find their place. One is a brand new student. The other used to be a part of a crowd and now isn't as much, and that's kind of explained to us in the first episode. I did have some issue with the monologue and the dialogue and just the overall script in the first episode. I'm like, all right, it's a romance, a bit of a cliched romance. I do enjoy certain attributes and traits about our characters, especially when you look at Juliette, just the unsurety of it all and not wanting to commit to something that her family has overwhelmingly been pushing her toward. That's definitely something that so many will be able to relate to. But then the sexual tension of it all, having a thing for this girl, and it feels like it's the other way around, but at the end of episode 1, you're like, oh, were both of them just kind of lying to themselves and each other? There's a nice little cliffhanger, and I was struggling with episode 1. I'm like, okay, is it kind of cliche and some of the characteristics, but let's see what happens, because the way it ends, I said, let's go. I'm ready for episode 2. As we start to move further into the series and get past kind of those cliches of episodes 1 and 2, we learn more about the families and the interesting yet familiar ideas at play here. We have one family of vampires, the other vampire hunters. They hunt down monsters, and both families are looking to these young girls and saying, listen, you have a destiny here, regardless of what that destiny is, and you have to fulfill that destiny, or we, as your parents, brothers, and sisters, are going to be extremely disappointed. And those are kind of the cliches that the family members fall in. We really don't learn too much about either side until later on in the series. Juliette has a sister here, a very cliche, over the top, you don't know what side she's on type of sister character that does somewhat help her sister out at points. And maybe there's a conversation or two where you're like, we could come around on her eventually. But there are elements to all of our supporting characters here, not focusing on the main two, that are so familiar, so conventional. And the biggest issue I have with this series is every other line, it feels like, is setup or exposition, or even at points the delivery is off. Now, I don't have a huge issue with the cast. I thought for the most part they were solid, and progressing the story forward, you do buy that they are vampire hunters on one side, and you buy that they're vampires on the other. The way that they go about, whether it be manipulating people around town or people within their circle. Then, thanks to our daughters getting in trouble at school, you have this spark of a relationship that forms between the two mothers. But do they actually know what the other side is all about? And, Austin, how long does it take for Juliette to learn about Calliope and vice versa? Well, it doesn't take very long at all. But even then, once they know who the other person is, and at that point understanding that I can't be in a relationship with this person because destiny won't allow it, well, there's still an attraction there, and there's still something that continues to draw them back to each other, and they start to question their destiny. All right, that is interesting for me, but it's kind of what that was surrounded by. That's what I was struggling with throughout the series. I don't want to knock the CGI too much because I did see an exchange on Twitter. The producer saying, listen, we didn't have a big budget for this show. We weren't able to provide the graphics maybe necessary. So even though those moments did take me out because they were so bad at times, I don't want to knock this show for it because understandably so, Netflix gives big budgets over here and then little budgets over there, so not a negative for me. What I did struggle with, though, was the progression of the story. And even though it did get more interesting after that very first twist where we're like, all right, we have the two families, we're going to learn what's going on between them, there were so many familiar tropes that it would fall in, and the romance really didn't progress very well in the first few episodes. Now, in the final batch of episodes, we get a lot of growth from our main two characters. We also start to understand what some of these supporting characters are doing, and that's when I said, well, this show has potential, but then we get the finale, and a little bit of finality, but not really. There are a lot of open-ended elements that are relying on a second season. And if this season isn't successful, I just don't know if they're going to get it. So I really struggle with the way that this left us off. I just wasn't satisfied. Even though my interest was beginning to peak as we were ramping up, I'm like, all right, finally, we're getting into something really good. And even the romantic aspect of it all that wasn't built up very well at first, you do buy that there's a chemistry there. Absolutely. And I think that's up to the two actors here, Sarah Catherine Hook and Imani Lewis, giving us good performances. They're solid in the roles. So at the end of the day, there are comparisons to be made. Twilight, Vampire Diaries. I do appreciate the fact that they're doing something different with the actual lore of the monsters and the monster hunters here. That was interesting. But before I give you guys my score, I need your comments, thoughts down below. And if you like this video, drop that like, helps the algorithm. All thoughts are welcomed. First Kill features excellent chemistry between the two leads and interesting lore, but the dialogue isn't doing this story any favors. Even though there is potential, Season 1 takes too long to find its footing, and that is why I'm going a 50% with my score. I need you guys down below letting me know, where did you fall? Did you enjoy it for what it was? Was the script too much of a problem? Are you tuning in for Season 2 either way? And I appreciate you guys for being here. Coming soon, we're ranking the Jurassic Park movies from 6 to 1. So that'll be fun. Roar.